The life expectancy in India is right now 67, which is not very high, and our meat consumption's actually gone down from about
Mhm.
5.7 kgs per person per year, which is really less. That I eat that much in a week, I think, to about 3 kgs per person per year over the past 20 years.
kg a year.
Yeah.
God.
And the deaths from non-communicable diseases has actually increased from 30% to 60% over the past 20
Mm.
years. So it's an absolute inverse relation that's actually quite obvious if somebody goes through the data. We know that Hong Kong has the highest life expectancy, right? About
Mhm.
87, 88 years or something like that. And they have the highest meat consumption per capita in the world. And there are a lot of people who talk about the longevity factor in India. We've had a lot of people who've actually lived on till about 90 and 100, absolutely. And some of them have been really fit. Some of them were not as fit. I remember, I know a lot of grandparents who actually lived on till 85, 90, but I don't remember playing around with them. I don't remember them running around with us too much. And it's not just about, that the vegetarian food is going to help you live longer. Maybe it will in some people, but then you also have to look at the quality of life. We know a lot of people who actually end up in old age homes. Why does that happen? I mean,
Welcome to the Plant-Free MD podcast with Dr. Anthony Chaffee, where we discuss diet and nutrition and how this affects health and chronic disease, and show you how you can use this to optimize your health and happiness, both mentally and physically. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Plant-Free MD podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and today I have a very special guest, Dr. Ankur Verma, who is someone who's become a friend of mine. I was on his podcast recently, and now he's kind enough to come on to mine. He's an emergency physician over in India and has seen firsthand what diet can do to his patients. So, Ankur, thank you so much for coming on. It's great to see you.
thank you so much, Anthony. I mean, it's been an absolutely an honor to know you for the past few weeks. I think, yeah. I mean, it was fun having you on the Desi EM project, and I've been wanting to come onto the Plant Free MD podcast, and yeah, here I am. It's going to be fun having this conversation.
Absolutely. Well, so for people who haven't come across you or your podcast, can you tell us a bit about yourself, a bit about your podcast and what you do?
Yeah, so I've been trained in emergency medicine, and I've been an emergency physician for the past 16, 17 years now. Yep. And I came up with my podcast in 2021. So this is the Desi EM project. I mean, Desi basically stands, I mean, Indians are called Desis all over the world by the Indian community. And EM obviously stands for emergency medicine. So I came up with this in December 2021, and it was basically to teach the residents regarding emergency medicine topics, some treatment protocols, new evidences coming out, breaking some myths and dogmas regarding emergency medicine. And it's been heard in about 45 countries now, which is quite surprising for me.
Yes.
Yeah. But then, in 2021, July itself, before I started off the podcast, uh, I tested myself, and I found out that my triglycerides was 600.
Mm.
And so my TG to HDL ratio was basically 16. And, I was like, something hit me. I was like, I've been working out for many years, but obviously I used to eat everything possible, like the trainers always tell you that, since you work out so much, eat whatever you want to eat. I still remember downing chicken dim sums, which has a lot of carbohydrates around it, post workouts. That was just one of the things I used to do. So, I figured that there's something wrong that I'm doing, and it has to be my nutrition and diet. Obviously, I was put on statins for the start because my LDL was also high. I think my blood pressure was also a little high at that time, so I was put on antihypertensive.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, it hit me quite quickly that I was never trained in nutrition like many other doctors, and we've always been advocating whatever we've been, learning and hearing through so many years, only with authority after we get our medical degrees. Eat a balanced diet, eat a moderate diet, have everything in moderation. And I've done that to my patients also. And if you ask me, I could never define a well-balanced diet or a moderate amount, of nutrition that people need to eat. Uh, Obviously, I mean, the first thing that I cut down at that time was sugars and junk food, which I realized because I used to eat a lot of junk foods. So I cut that off, absolutely. And then I started doing my research into nutrition. And I think the first book I read was Professor Robert Lustig's Metabolical.
Mm.
I don't know if you've read that once. It's really nice because it was a really nice introduction into metabolic syndromes for me because I don't think in medicine we've been trained regarding metabolic syndromes as a whole, because obviously nobody wants to cure metabolic syndromes. You just want to manage them. So that was an eye opener for me. I was like, yeah, probably I was metabolically sick. I mean, even if I used to exercise, uh, I was inflamed from inside. And then slowly I went into ketogenic, obviously, and carnivore. Like a lot of people have this journey, but what was important for me was the concept of metabolic syndrome. So, started working on that. And yeah, it took me, I think, a year to go full carnivore. I was always an omnivore. I used to love my meat. So it wasn't that difficult because I used to eat meats probably every day, at least one meal a day. But obviously, again, it was like the standard Indian diet. I would load it up with my carbohydrates. So, but when I went ketogenic, I cut off a lot of breads and portion controlled my rice intake. Started having oats for breakfast every day, which I figured was not right for me after a year when I started getting symptoms. And then I came across, I think somebody sent a reel from Paul Saladino regarding carnivore. I was like, oh, this is something new. And then through Paul Saladino's reels, I then got into yours, Ken Berry's, Robert Kills, Sean Baker, everybody, all of that. And then I was like, this actually makes sense. And I mean, it's been more than a year that I turned carnivore. And then I started watching all my patients, and I realized this is not just me. This is basically a pandemic that's happening for a very long time. So yeah, here I am. Talking about whatever I've done to myself. I mean, I lost 21 kgs. My TG to HL ratio has come down to 1.6. I've fixed a few of my family members, some of my friends without medications. So yeah, I mean, the word needs to go out, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great. It's sort of funny. Well, can be very shocking. You're a medical professional, you're a doctor, you're working out, you're doing everything right, you're eating whatever a balanced diet is, and then all of a sudden you get a slap to the face that hold on a second, I'm actually metabolically unwell, and that has to be a bit of a wake up call.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a big wake up call for me.
Hmm.
And then I realized that a lot of people around me are also sick, and now it's so much easier to actually look at somebody and say, okay, it's on your face, and you're metabolically sick, even if you feel that you're not. Even if you're like 25 years old or 30 years old, I mean, age is no bar for metabolic syndromes anymore. The diet has really gone down the drain for everybody. Nutrition is not available for everybody, and there's a lot of myths going around for decades, like we all know, regarding this. So yeah, but it's a good slap that I had, and I've really turned my life around. I feel great. I look at my before pictures, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I always thought I was fit, but no, I was not.
Yeah.
I just have my son, he just wants me to show this to you that he's just written this down. I don't know. S- yeah, he's just noting down carnivore foods
Oh, nice.
to, I think,
Um,
yep.
there we go.
Yeah. So there's like fish and prawns and buff and beef and chicken and mutton and pork.
Healthy
And yeah,
life.
that all equals to a healthy life. Yeah, it's I think turned around. Yeah.
Yeah,
There
nice.
you go, Ian.
Yeah, it's good
That's my 18
homework.
year old. Yeah.
Yeah. No, good. Yeah, it's good. It's great to get it's nice that he's young enough, is still willing to listen to you.
Yeah,
It's,
absolutely.
yeah, a few
Yeah, he's
years
been
older.
he's been trying to school his teachers also.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that's gotta be interesting. How'd that go over?
Yeah, I mean, he's doing it right now. Let's see. I mean, he's been telling them, listen to my podcast, listen to others.
Hmm.
It's not just about the vegetables. It's actually not about the vegetables. And then he gets into discussions with his schoolmates who are all having a lot of vegetables. You know, yeah.
Hmm.
Don't want to say too much about that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Well, that's great. And how long has your son been doing this too?
Yeah, I think about a year now. So yeah,
Yeah.
he eats what we eat. Sometimes he has a little bit of rice with his food, but that's okay. I mean, he's still young, but he knows that he can offset that later on.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
he loves his chicken and his meats and goats and all. Yeah, I mean, he
yeah,
enjoys all of that. Yeah,
yeah. Nice. And he's doing well?
he's doing well. Yeah, I mean, he works out with me. I mean, whatever he can do. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you noticed much difference in your health and his health since you guys started?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, see, I lost my weight when I was doing ketogenic anyways, right?
Hmm.
And but then when I look back onto the photos at that time, I can see there was still a little bit of inflammation because I was still having a little bit of carbs at that time. But I've definitely put on more lean muscle since I went carnivore.
Hmm.
My energy levels has really gone up since a year. And I remember, I mean, I was having a conversation with Sarah also about priming. When you go into carnivore, I remember my weight actually increased for the first 3 or 4 months, and then started to come down again. And now it's like settled at about, I think, 63 kilos or 64 kilos. But I know that my fat percentage actually came down faster when I went into a full-blown carnivore diet
Hmm.
rather than when I was doing ketogenic. So yeah, and I mean he's 8 years old. He's always energetic. He's always been energetic, but I think he's got more stamina now because he plays football like twice a week, thrice a week, and even when he comes back, he's got lots of energy to keep playing. And
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think we'll see some more effects on him after a year or two. Today he was doing dumbbell curls. He's never done that in front of me. He's always been observing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, take it easy.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be fun to see, especially him and his peers, because he's very likely going to grow a lot taller than them, be more athletic than them, always never
Yeah.
struggle with his weight or mental. I mean, kids are always going to have sort of issues with being sad and depressed and things like that. But the majority of mental health issues can be avoided, hopefully. And and just see, and especially you got him so young, so like he's just got all of puberty just to ramp this
Yeah.
up, which is going to be
Exactly, yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, the sad thing is that I mean, there was a study that came out recently in India itself. They've done ultrasounds for, I think, 8-year-olds to 18-year-olds in rural city in India, and
Mhm.
60% of them had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Yeah,
You
wow.
know, yeah. So I mean, that's the amount of carbohydrates and processed foods that are fed to children,
Yeah.
and which is quite sad. I remember one of the mothers groups from the school were actually discussing what you put in the kids' milks, and they were all discussing about the chocolate syrups that you have and the strawberry syrups, and yeah, that was all going on, and they were like, which one is the healthiest? And I really wanted to get in there and
Mhm.
give them a lesson, but I was like, it's okay. I don't want to
Yeah.
start a controversy
I
in the school
know.
right now.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have, I could have withheld. Like, I would have just been like, which one's more healthy, the chocolate syrup or the strawberry
Probably.
syrup? None of the syrups. Like, my goodness, that's a shocking number. I mean, I remember the first cases of fatty liver disease in kids in America, at least, were in the 1990s, and that was back when it was called type or adult onset diabetes, and it was
Yeah.
fatty liver disease was exclusively seen in alcoholic populations. And
Yeah.
so they were shocked that these 10-year-old kids, the particular 10-year-old kid on the news, who had adult onset diabetes and fatty liver disease. And they were like, but he's not an adult. How can a kid get adult onset diabetes? How can he get fatty liver? We only see that in alcoholics. And he's never had a drink in his life. He's 10. And so instead of actually looking into it and thinking about this, okay, what changed? They just said, nah, it's probably always happening. We just didn't notice it. It wasn't getting picked up. And I guess you could say that once, but once you say, okay, now we're looking, it should stay the same, right? But no, it went up decade after decade after decade, and it's still climbing. And
Yeah.
so it's a bit of a farce to say that nah, it was always there. I mean, think about how it was a lot of people will say no, carbs won't do that, but how do we make fatty liver in other animals in our livestock? You force feed them grains, you force
Yeah.
feed them carbs. And so,
Absolutely.
why do we think this is going to be any different in us? It's of course it's not going to. We get marbling in beef and lamb and goat because we give them carbs.
Yeah.
And then we look at MRIs and we just go, it's like, oh, what was that myostenosis? What's that about? It's marbling. That's human marbling. And then you mentioned that to other people, that we see this in MRIs. We see this fatty deposits in muscle, and that's just like marbling in cows. It's likely going to be from the same thing. Oh, how could that be? Like, why
Yeah.
would it not be?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they fatten them up to make the meat softer, and it gets more expensive for us.
Hmm.
And if you're fattening them up, obviously the organs are also going to, fatten up.
Hmm.
And that's what happens. And I mean, it happens in humans also. And it's happening at very young ages, which is actually not right for us.
Mm.
I mean, just wipe off generations to come. If things keep going in this direction where, where we actually start feeding sugars and seed oils to infants in the baby formulas, and that's how most of them get addicted to the cup. I mean, it was always a surprise to me as to why kids love sugar so much. I mean, because none of us used to read the ingredients, of these formula foods in the beginning. The pediatricians would tell us that okay, fine, you wean them off, start them with formula. And all right, why not? I mean, it's supposed to be healthy for them.
Hmm.
And even I've given it to my son because I had no idea at that time. I would never read ingredients, gave some to him. And then and now you look back and you think, why would they love sugar so much? It's because, they were fed sugars when they didn't even know what food is all about.
Hmm.
And that's how early we've got them addicted to all of this food stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as an ER doctor, obviously you're seeing, the front line of things going very wrong. What is
Yeah.
Has that changed in since you've been practicing medicine? Has the character of problems of illnesses coming in changed since you started medicine? Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass fed and finished pasture raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, we've been seeing the same spectrum of diseases, but many more patients come in now, and the age range has changed. Earlier, things like MIs or heart attacks, diabetes, diabetic ketoacidosis, strokes used to be diseases of the older age groups.
Mhm.
That's how we were taught. But now we've been seeing, I mean, we've published a few papers where we had a 17-year-old come in with a heart attack. We've had 35-year-old doctors come in with strokes, uh, you know, and uh, and a lot of other young patients also coming in with probably just an infection, but they would have comorbid conditions of diabetes and hypertension and coronary artery disease already diagnosed. And it's got me thinking as to why that's happening. And we've had repeat patients come in. Somebody's had a heart attack and they come in again after a year or so with another heart attack. And they say, we've been taking all our medications. We get diabetic patients who are probably on some oral hypoglycemics. They come in with some hypoglycemias or maybe a diabetic ketoacidosis. And then, they get admitted and then they get discharged on insulin. They come after 2 weeks again and their insulin is increased. And what I've realized is that none of them are getting cured of these syndromes. I mean, as doctors, we've actually become managers of the health conditions, and we're not actually managing them really well
Mhm.
because the amount of medications only keeps increasing. I was talking to some nephrologists, and we get a lot of kidney disease patients because we dialyze them in our emergency itself. And I've seen over the years, they come in with CKD stage 1 or 2, and they progress on to CKD stage 5, end stage renal disease, and then they're dialyzed. And obviously, I mean, that's no life to live. So what have we been doing? Nothing at all. I mean, no offense to any of the doctors, because that's what we've been taught, what medications to give, what is the treatment. So yeah, we treat the acute phase. Even somebody comes in with a heart attack, they're stented, they put on blood thinners, they put on their aspirins and statins and all of that, and they're discharged. Yes, that acute phase has been taken care of. We've saved their lives at that time, but that is the only moment in time that we've saved their life. I mean, we don't know, in the next 2 years they might just die off because the root cause was actually not addressed, which is insulin resistance, uh, and the inflammation that they have, because nobody addresses their diet. They send to dietitians for a balanced diet, and the dietitians have also been taught the same way that we've been taught. We were not yet actually taught,
Mm.
anyways. But yeah, so they put on moderation. They still have their carbohydrates. They have their complex carbs and simple carbs and all of that. Put them on grains, fruits, and some vegetables and stuff. They're always told to avoid red meats, uh, and even egg yolks. And then they actually come back, and in a worse condition, their heart keeps failing. Uh, so yeah, I mean, and the age range, like I told you, has actually gone down. And I mean, that's what I've been trying to tell people, that, I mean, when you come into the emergency department, you're actually coming in with a lot of complications of these metabolic syndromes, or
Mm.
the complications of the medications that you're on, because it's not well managed. And a lot of patients who are actually not very compliant with their medications also. So I've been trying to send out this message that help me save your life by actually not coming into the emergency department. You won't need to come to the emergency department if you actually end up reversing your metabolic syndromes. A lot of the patient footfall would go down, a lot of resources would be saved, a lot of money would be saved for the hospitals and for the patients. Yeah, obviously, if you have a trauma or an accident, you need to come into the ED. But then if you reverse your metabolic syndromes, you won't come in with accelerated hypertension, you won't come in with ICH, which is brain hemorrhage, like, you won't come in with strokes, you won't come in with heart attacks, you won't come in with diabetic ketoacidosis, even infections, communicable diseases. You're not that susceptible if you're actually metabolically healthy, insulin sensitive, your immunity is really high. You're not going to catch infections so easily. So, you're not going to come in with that. You're recurrent. We get a lot of patients with kidney stones, recurrent UTIs, and people don't know about oxalates. Doctors don't know about oxalates,
Mm.
and the other anti-nutrients, right? So, I mean, I've had so many patients who come in with recurrent stones. I've tried to counsel them, regarding their food habits. It was really, really difficult for them to understand. They're like, it's all because of the calcium. Like, no, it's because of the oxalates. They're the ones chelating your calcium from your bones, causing the stones. And that's just the start. A lot of hypothyroid patients, and a lot of cancers. A lot of cancers. We get so many cancer patients. The complications of cancers. The treatment, when chemotherapy is done, they get
Mhm.
febrile neutropenic. A lot of patients who have metastasis and the symptoms of that. So all of these are metabolic syndrome. We know that even cancer is a metabolic syndrome. Your diet is really, really important. And yeah, so I mean, if people actually do reverse their metabolic syndromes, they won't need to come to the emergency department and get their lives saved. It makes life easier for everybody. Everybody. I mean, I have my uncle who was diagnosed with a renal tumor in January.
Mm.
He's been a diabetic for 25 years, and a hypertensive. He was on 3 medications. And then in January, he was told that he needs to start on insulin and get dialyzed because he had an acute kidney injury because of the renal tumor. I was like, no ways. We put him on a carnivore diet. He started doing ketosis before his immune therapy, which I'd got in touch with Professor Seafried.
Mm.
So he started doing that when it was time for his immunotherapy every 3 weeks. In 2 months, he was off all 3 medications for diabetes. He was
Okay.
off his medications for hypertension, and his second PET scan. So this was in January, and we got the second PET scan done in April. His tumor size has actually gone down. His lung mets have disappeared. His mediastinal mets have actually reduced in numbers and size. So that's like a really, really positive outcome.
Yeah.
and he's completely changed. Him and his wife, my aunt, they're like, this is all carnivore and ketosis. This cannot be just the medication. I was like,
Mm,
yeah, why not? I mean, you've
mm,
got off the major thing is that your inflammation is really down. His CRP counts have been coming down, even though he has a tumor. His CRP counts have been coming down, which is actually quite surprising to see. And yeah, I'm writing up a case series of 2 3 people that I've been treating, so at least we get some scientific papers out there from the carnivore community. There's very less. I mean, you have so many
yeah.
patients. A lot of people have done really good with their patients, but we need more publications
Mm,
regarding this, right? So
yeah.
yeah, I'm writing up some case series for this. And so yeah, so cancers again. I mean, if you're metabolically healthy, you won't get cancers,
Mm.
at least some of them. Uh, and yeah, so I mean, that's what's happening in the emergency departments all over the world, I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that's the scariest thing, this is getting younger and younger, like a 17-year-old kid having a heart attack. It's absolutely shocking that that
Yeah.
can happen. And you hear some people point this out. I saw a doctor on TikTok of all places. But he's got a big following, and he's a bariatric surgeon in America, and he just says just very hard line, standard, straight out of a textbook sort of stuff. So can't really blame him for that. But what you can blame him for is you're making excuses for things when people point out the flaws, right? How there were no heart attacks in America or deaths from heart attack proven on autopsy before 1912. You didn't see any of this stuff. I mean, treat heart disease and diabetes and cancer and all these sorts of things to any great extent. Alzheimer's, first described in 1906. And he sort of was watching this, and he sort of did like this reel with like Paul Saladino where he's pointing this out, and he just goes, that's nonsense. I mean, people in the 1800s and before, they just weren't living long enough to get these diseases. And first of all, that's absurd. I mean, just on its face, and it doesn't even pass the smell test, because the minimum age to run for president of the United States since the 1700s is 35 years old. And so it's like people just died of old age in their 30s, and like apparently not, because the minimum age to run for president was 35. And I'm pretty sure we had a few presidents in the
Yeah.
1800s. So, all the founding American founding fathers, they all, like John Adams, he died at 91. He was born in the mid 1700s. He died in the mid 1800s, and the rest of the founding fathers, unless they were killed by something, generally lived to be in their 80s and 90s. And so that was pretty typical. I mean, you look at any sort of historical figure and just look, how old were they when they died? It's that was just not a thing. They lived very similar life expectancies. It was just average life expectancy from birth was low, because infant mortality rate was very high.
Yeah.
But the way they kept statistics is if you made it to 0, it was 38 in 1850. But if you made it to 10, on average, you make it to 56, and on and on. So as you became an adult, you're more likely to live the age that we do now. So trying to make that argument is like, well, just dismissing this, like not even thinking about this for a second, shows such an unscientific mind, that they're just saying that, like, well, no, nothing to see here, just being so closed off, and saying, no, it can't possibly be anything except what I learned in medical school, is very lazy thinking. And looking at that and trying to make an excuse, people just died too early, they just didn't live long enough. Well, we know that's not true, that's absurd. But also now they're getting younger and younger and younger. So now you get 17-year-olds. Well, because people weren't living to 17 in the 1800s. What the hell is that about? How can you justify that sort of
Yeah.
nonsense?
Yeah, the life expectancy in India is right now 67,
Yeah.
which is not very high, and our meat consumption's actually gone down from about
Mhm.
5.7 kgs per person per year, which is really less. That I eat that much in a week, I think, to about to about 3 kgs per person per year over the past 20 years.
kg a year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
God.
And the deaths from non-communicable diseases has actually increased from 30% to 60% over the past
Mm,
20 years. So it's an absolute inverse relation that's actually quite obvious if somebody goes through the data. I was just checking it out a few days back, and I was quite surprised because we know that Hong Kong has the highest life expectancy, right? About
mhm.
87, 88 years or something like that. And they have the highest meat consumption per capita in the world. And
Yeah.
then you look at a country, and there are a lot of people who talk about the longevity factor in India. Yes, I mean, I remember we've had a lot of people who've actually lived on till about 90 and 100, absolutely, and some of them have been really fit, some of them were not as fit. I remember, I know a lot of grandparents who actually lived on till 85, 90, but they were, I don't remember playing around with them. I don't remember them running around with us too much, uh because I think they did not have uh the lean muscle that we
Mm,
talk about that people should have. They were more sarcopenic. Now that I look back, obviously they had fragile bones. They also ended up with diabetes, kidney disease, all of that. And it's not just about that the vegetarian food is going to help you live longer. Uh, Maybe it will in some people, but then you also have to look at the quality of life. We know a lot of people who actually end up in old age homes. Why
mm,
does that happen? I mean, and it's not that they're roaming around freely in the old age homes. You will have some exceptions, yes, but most of them are either wheelchair bound, or they need help, or you know uh, they need nursing aid. So, yeah, definite meats are required. It's really difficult to get to, put that into the mindset of the people. But I'm sure someday the ice is going to break. I mean, we just have to
mm,
be repetitive to do that. And I think the mainstream media actually plays a role in this, picking up these kind of story, like the Mendelian randomization that just came out, which says that meat does not cause any heart
mm.
disease, meat does not cause any cancer. It was not picked up by any mainstream media.
Oh
None
yeah.
of them.
No.
Yeah, I mean, if they would have said the opposite, it would have been breaking news all over the world.
Mm,
But yeah, nobody picked it up.
yeah. Yeah. Funny
So it's
that.
it's it's up to us, I think.
Yeah. Well, it is. I actually just got a patient sent in. She got hold of something that's going to be talked about in the parliament here in Western Australia. Basically, trashing meat and how it's horrible for health, and it's causes heart disease and cancer and diabetes. Literally, it said this in there,
Yeah.
and that it destroys the environment. We have to go to alternative protein sources. It's all plant-based crap, and how this can
Yeah.
save the world and save the environment and save our health and all this sort of nonsense. It's actually really disgusting. So this is being going at a parliamentary level, at a governmental level, that they're trying to force this through because there's trillions of dollars backing it, and
Yeah.
we're spending trillions of dollars a year. I mean that's going to sink any system, and we're just completely destroying ourselves financially. And from a health perspective, all those dollars represent sick people that are living shorter lives and are being harmed by that, and our economies are being harmed by that too because we don't have people that are healthy enough to work, and they're on disability, and they're not able to care for their families and all these sorts of things. And so it's yeah, it is just it's just going to be us, and that's why we have to do that. um I was going to say too, what you were talking about with only eating previously eating 5 kilos a year, which, I mean, that sounds like a sandwich to me. It's just like it's like
Yeah, I mean, I was
very
shocked. I
normal
actually
number.
ran through those numbers a few times. Like,
Yeah.
this can't be
Yeah.
possible, but yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, it was just like, is that a year? Are we sure it's a year, not a month, not a week? Like,
Very
um,
weird.
yeah, and then dropping down to 3 kilos. I mean, that's shocking too. So, but that's the thing that people say. They say, well, if plant-based diets were so bad, then how do you explain India? You
Yeah,
know? So,
exactly.
so well,
So,
there. Yeah, sorry, go on.
yeah, I mean, that's what I've been thinking. And so we've started a couple of research projects in our department, right? So,
Mhm.
uh, a lot of our patients who are coming in, like I mentioned before, have comorbid conditions. They have diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, hypothyroidism, cancer, all of that. So we've started a survey, which is going to go on for till December next year, and we're putting in we're asking all the patients who have comorbid conditions to let us know what they eat, and by what I mean, first is the type of food they're eating: vegetarian, carnivore, omnivore, pescatarian, anything. And if they're not vegetarians or vegans, we ask them how frequently do they eat the eggs or the fish or the meats, and what accompanies that food. And obviously, we're also putting down if they have processed foods or not, and their drug habits, any smoking or alcohol, and all of that.
Mhm.
And yeah, we're collecting all of that data, and we've got about 350 patients already in a month. And I mean, I wasn't that surprised. 99% of them easily were vegetarians, and the
Yeah.
1% who were omnivores were actually eating meats probably once a week, if not more. But yeah, once a week to once a month.
Mm,
And they were all accompanied by carbohydrates, which is like the standard Indian diet. I mean,
mm,
you have your chicken curries or your mutton curries, and you load them with rice or rotis. I mean, I still love doing that. So that's the standard Indian diet, and it's full of carbohydrates. But yeah, 99% of these patients who are vegetarian, they do not drink alcohol. They're not smokers. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of bias when they're putting in that survey regarding the alcohol and the smoking. I can totally understand that,
mhm,
but they will not lie about being a vegetarian because they all believe that a vegetarian diet is the healthiest diet. So I know that is not going to be, hidden from us regarding what they eat. But yeah, they might put in falsely regarding smoking or alcohol. For
mm,
sure, that can happen. But I'm 110% sure anybody who's a vegetarian. I mean, there are people who say, there's the Jain community when they come in, they're like,
mm.
I mean, we eat really healthy food. We don't even eat onions and garlic. So that's how healthy we eat. I remember I had a 23-year-old who had come in, and he had diabetes, hypertension, coronary artery disease, and he had had a stroke earlier.
Oh
I
my
was like, what
goodness.
the hell are you doing to yourself? I mean, there's nothing healthy in what you're doing. He's like, I don't smoke, I don't drink. I'm like, yes, but you're eating what you're not supposed to eat. That is why you have all of these conditions.
Mm,
At the age of 23, I mean, if you were 63, I could have still like, okay, fine. I mean, you lived half your life. But at the age of 23, you had all of this. So yeah, I mean, I'm 110% sure what the results are going to be. uh, but yeah, so I'm not doing the surveys, so that no
yeah.
bias
So
comes
no
out.
bias.
Yeah, it's my team. Every week they just give me an update as to what's happening, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
I'm not. And I started this off why because we saw a lot of patients who were coming in, and I saw the positive effects in me. My head of my department is probably my best student who's actually following. He started carnivore in
Mm,
December and lost about 8 or 9 kgs. He's off his antihypertensives, so he's
nice.
also become a big advocate of carnivore
Yeah.
for his family and his friends. But yeah, so for the past 7 or 8 months, I was asking every patient I was seeing, what do you eat? What do you eat? What do you eat? And
Mm,
every time the answer used to be, I'm a pure vegetarian. I'm a pure vegetarian. And so I was like, we need to get this data and we need the numbers. So why don't we just start off a project, and yeah,
yeah.
yeah, let you know what happens by
Yeah.
the end of next year.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, that's really interesting, and that'll be great when that comes out. And that's the thing, if vegans and vegetarians are supposed to be the healthiest people on earth, they're not supposed to get these diseases, not supposed to get chronic disease, they're not supposed to get metabolic syndrome and metabolic illnesses or cancer and diabetes and heart disease or strokes, because of course that's caused by
Yeah,
uh,
the meats.
meat and yeah and saturated fat, cholesterol, and all these sorts of things. They really shouldn't be in there. You should only, should only be those people eating the 3 kilos of meat a year that should be coming in your department. But it's
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
And obviously, I mean, this is not a randomized control study. We know the
Mm,
limitations of the study, right? I mean, I'm not looking at the healthy patients or the apparently healthy patients, right? I mean, I'm
mm,
not, these are the patients who are coming into my department. I'm not going out into the community. And
mm,
even if I go out into the community, if somebody says, I do not have comorbids, how do they know? They've never been tested,
yeah.
right? So I can't go out and test them and then say, okay, fine, you're metabolically healthy. What do you eat? We're not doing that right now. And I also know that we're not going to get too many carnivores, probably no carnivores over the next 2 years.
Because they
Will be
need
like all except
because they
me.
don't
Yeah.
need to come in because they're healthy. There you go. That's
Yeah.
why.
So yeah. So I mean, uh, so that's a little bit of a limitation that we have, but the data is actually going to talk quite a bit because we'll have huge sample size, about 7 to 8 thousand. That's what we're planning.
Yeah.
Maybe hit 10,000. Let's see.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, that'd be huge. And obviously, your center sounds like you're seeing quite a large volume in India. It's a lot of people. So
A lot of
yeah,
people, yeah.
yeah, you got a lot of people to study too.
Yeah. That reminds me of something somebody told me
Mm.
that, India has such a large population. Of course, you're going to have the highest number of sick people. I'm like, why?
Yeah, yeah.
If we have the largest population, we should have the highest number of the healthiest people.
Mm-mm.
Why the sickest people? We should have healthy people.
Yeah,
Why can't we just work towards the positive and not the negative, I mean, just because we have the maximum numbers, we should also have the maximum numbers of
yeah.
healthy, metabolically sensitive patients. Oh, people, not patients, but yeah, people, yeah.
Yeah, well, also and percentages, right? I mean, like what's the percentage of people getting sick? So if it's just straight across the board, this is the percent around the world that people get cancer, and it just doesn't change for anything. Like, all right, well, that's just something that happens, but it is very different in different areas and different regions and under different conditions. So obviously, there are environmental factors that go into this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a systematic review that came out which said that India has 30% of the population which has a diagnosed metabolic syndrome,
Mm,
and another 30% that are probably pre-diabetic. So that's 60% of the population that's sick anyways.
yeah, wow.
Uh, yeah, but I think in every household that I know, there is either a hypertensive or a diabetic patient. Yeah. I
Jesus.
think in every household. Yeah, I mean everybody I know, if I can actually look back or just probably make a tree or something like that, of all the people I know, there would be somebody in the family who has one metabolic syndrome for sure.
Yeah. And you said 30% have diabetes?
Yeah,
That's amazing. I mean, so like America, it's like 10% have diabetes, right? Type
there
2.
you go.
I mean, so I mean that's incredible. So and we blame America. I mean, there's a lot of junk food in America. It is, we eat a plant-based diet in America and in Australia and Europe. It's just more processed food, plant-based diet. And even then, and we eat meat, and even then, we have a very high diabetes, right? Higher than it's ever been, increased by over a fact, I think it's 6 to 8 fold increase since the 1970s and 80s in America. It's a massive, massive increase. And and blame that on the meat. Obviously, Harvard Dr. Willett came out saying that diabetes is caused by red meat or is associated with red meat. And then, but there you go. It's like, well, they're all plant-based or mostly plant-based over in India. And how do you explain that? Well, I think that does explain it. 30% diabetes rates, 3 times the diabetes rate of the fat, sick Americans that everybody in the entire world laughs at from a health perspective.
Yeah, yeah. I'll send you the paper. I mean, offline.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think the study population that taken were about I think 300,000 people or something like that. They had studied the R cities regarding this. But yeah, I'll send you the paper across.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, that sort of begs the question, apart from that, do you know like the rates of like of cancers and other sorts of non-communicable chronic diseases and those sorts of things? And more importantly, um, I think of this in the context of life expectancy. You said the life expectancy is on average from birth 67 years. But in
Yeah.
that time period, in the last 20 years, we've started eating less meat and there's more metabolic disease. Has that affected life expectancy as well?
Uh, I'm not sure about the numbers yet, but I
Mm,
do know that deaths in India due to non-communicable diseases and the NCDs and the metabolic syndrome is
mhm.
actually increased from 30% to 60%.
Wow.
Yeah, so 60% of the deaths in India are because of complications of NCDs and metabolic syndromes, which includes your cardiac diseases, your diabetes, cancers, all of
Mm,
that. Yeah. So I'm not sure about the life expectancy. That the
mhm,
life expectancy 2 years back was 67 years.
mhm,
I don't know what it was earlier. Not sure
mhm.
about the numbers. I'll check it up. But
Yeah.
yes, this was surprising. Actually, not surprising, but yeah, the numbers actually spoke for themselves because earlier it was 30% of the deaths in India were because of NCDs. Now it's 60%. That's double.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. Yeah, and
And
obviously,
we see a lot of cancer patients for sure. I don't know the numbers, but a lot of them. You go to any super specialty hospital in India which has an oncology center, you'll see throngs of patients coming in with cancers and the complications.
yeah, yeah. Well, that was a paper, paper that came out from Harvard School of Public Medicine talking about the NCDs, the non-communicable chronic diseases, and they just looked at five of them. So cancer, heart disease, COPD, diabetes, mental health,
Mm.
and they looked at how much we were spending across the world just to treat these things, the direct and indirect costs of treating just those five diseases. And it was so upwards of like $8 trillion, 7 or 8 trillion dollars in 2010 around the world. And in
So
2030
double.
is expected to go up over $13 trillion. So it's
Mm.
nearly doubling what we're
Yeah,
spending on this, and so the idea, I mean, we've never been more technologically advanced. We've never had known more than we do right now, at least in books. Uh, Although, we've fooled ourselves and forgotten a lot of things that are very important, and that's why we're in the trouble that we're in, I think. And yet, from a medical science point of view, we never had better interventions than we have now,
yeah.
and yet more people are getting sick, more people are dying, and like you said, the mortality rate of these chronic diseases are increasing. And so, like with cancers, that's it's just getting
It's
more
getting
and
worse.
more
Yeah,
prevalent. COPD, all these sorts of things are getting harder and harder to deal with.
yeah.
And people can say, well, the treatments are getting more expensive because we're getting new treatments, because you always get new treatments, and that, yeah, that's fair enough. However, they've also calculated this in time lost, and lost sick days, and lost production, and lost productivity, and things like that. And that's estimated to have lost the economy, world economy, nearly $47 trillion between 2011 and 2030. And then the most important one was the cost of premature deaths, people dying young, and how much this costs. Someone has a 17-year-old kid dies from a heart attack, and like that's his entire loss of productivity for the rest of his life. Somebody dies in their 30s, and they leave their family unable to care for themselves, and they have to figure out what to do. Those costs of people just dying early was estimated in 2010 to be upwards of 22 trillion, nearly $23 trillion a year worldwide. And by 2030, they expect that to go up to nearly $43 trillion a year that we're spending on just excess deaths and early deaths because
That's
we're
insane.
failing to get a hold of this.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. I mean, there's so much of money being put in for treating patients, but not
Mhm.
curing them.
Yeah.
I mean, none of these medication companies are actually sitting in their boardroom and discussing how should we reduce the medications on a patient. It's always how do we sell more,
Yeah. Yeah.
and people are buying, yeah, and they're spending so much of money. I mean, I remember I, if you go carnivore, a lot of people think meat's going to be more expensive, as a lifestyle. But it's actually not. I mean, we had a helper in our department, and her husband was diagnosed with diabetes. His HbA1c was 11 or something, and I gave her two options. I mean, either you go to an endocrinologist and start off on medications, you try carnivore,
Mm.
and they actually did it. And his
Oh,
sugar
wow.
levels fell down from 430 to 100 fasting in like a month, and his HbA1c from went down from 11 to 7. Yeah, obviously you're cutting off junk foods and carbs. That also people need to understand.
Mhm.
It's not just about the meats. You're cutting off all the carbohydrates and sugars, but then you're actually adding on a lot of nutrition also,
Yeah.
a lot of anti-inflammatory properties that meats have, all the proteins that we need, the saturated fats that we need. Even if you go vegetarian and vegan, a lot of people have reversed their diabetes by cutting off all the major carbohydrates and sugars, but then they end up with other deficiencies and other illnesses and other sicknesses, obviously. But yeah, I mean, and this guy was able to sustain himself on this diet because he used to like his meat, so he started having it in every meal that he was having, and actually got better without medications. So, and he could afford it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing. He could afford to actually eat that ways.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, eating meat's generally more affordable than diabetes medications,
Yeah,
typically.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And dying young. Yeah, I think most things are cheaper than
Yeah,
that.
exactly. And once you're diagnosed, your insurance company premiums go up,
Mm,
and then people probably don't end up. I mean, they end up not paying their premiums. They're like, it's too expensive for us, and then they get into complications, and then they can't pay for that.
mm,
Once they get all the complications, and it's a whole vicious cycle. I mean, it's so much easier to actually get off all the medications and
mm.
not end up in the emergency department.
Yeah, definitely. And well, that's great that you're getting people to do that. So have you been trying to obviously it's sort of difficult, you're doing acute care in the ER, so it's not, you don't have the luxury of sitting down with someone for
Yeah.
half an hour and really getting into it. But have you been able to sort of incorporate this into your practice? And is that legal where you are? You allowed to do that?
I think as doctors, everybody, all the doctors are allowed to give lifestyle advices.
Hmm.
I don't tell them that, stop having your medications and eat food.
Yeah.
What I tell them is, all right, you continue your medications for the time being, but then incorporate this also into your lifestyle, and then wait and watch. Probably your medications will be stopped by your primary physician himself once your reports are all okay.
Yeah.
If your HbA1c comes down to 4, there's no reason he should put you on oral hypoglycemics or your insulin, right? So, but yeah, people who are close to me, my family and friends, they get I've put them off medications. I didn't even start medications for some of them,
Mhm.
for diabetes, for hypothyroidism. There's another one who has fatty liver, and this is grade 2 fatty liver. So yeah, I'm treating her with the carnivore diet, and she's actually feeling a lot better. I'll get to know her results in sometime this month. So yeah, family and friends, they're not going to sue me anyway. So that's okay. And for my patients, yeah, I mean, I don't have the time to sit with them. There's some of them who are actually very receptive, and then there's some who actually used to eat meats and then turned vegetarian and started having problems. And this is what they tell me themselves. You're
Mhm.
actually right. When I started eating only vegetarian, my health actually started to deteriorate.
Yeah.
So, they made me write down a chart for them, which is very easy. What should I eat? These 6 items, you can eat these in whatever form you want. Use these oils or ghee and butter and all that to cook, no seed oils. And that's about it. And see how you do. Continue your medications till your primary physician tells you to stop them. Or if you want to follow up with me, I mean, I give them the option, but yeah, none of them and come back into the ED because I don't have consultations in the
Mhm.
ED. But yeah, a couple of them are in touch with me and
Mhm.
they're doing better. But I've
Yeah,
asked
good.
them to follow up with their primary physicians. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. And so you got your head of department on it. That's great. Have you started toppling the other dominoes around your department too?
Yeah, we're trying. We're trying. I mean, there are a few vegetarian ones. I always tell them as a joke, look at your future. Whenever I hope
Yeah.
comes in. So yeah, so that's a nice one that goes on. A few of them, yeah, they've not they're into their residency program, right? So it's very difficult for them to chart out and sit and eat only because they have varied timings and all of
Yeah.
that. But I think they're trying. Once they clear their final exams and all, probably they'll have more money and more time to actually
Mm.
sit down and take care of their nutrition. There are a few vegetarians. They're very stern about it because they've been vegetarian all their life. They've actually understood, yes, what they're doing is not going to help them too much in the future life, but it's very difficult to convert into an omnivore. Forget about carnivore.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we'll keep trying. I mean, can't help it.
Yeah.
We have a lot of numbers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. You found something that works. You see something that's scientifically rigorous. That this actually has some real scientific value behind it, and it's working. It's working for you. It's working for your patients. It's working for millions of people, literally millions
Family.
of people around the world at this point. It's actually pretty impressive. You have these different groups around along the internet. You have different channels like yours and mine and Dr. Baker's and Saladino's and Dr. Barry's. We're reaching millions and millions of people,
Yeah.
and and the vast majority of people, I mean, my channel is only about the carnivore diet. So I'm sure
Yeah.
people follow me because I don't know, assuming that the comments you get, like there's a couple little hecklers like every now and then, like the same person, they're just like, oh, it's
Yeah.
angry just every single time. And it's just like, why are you following me if I just make you so angry,
Exactly. Yeah.
and but
And you don't have to comment back because you have this whole community behind you,
yeah,
and they're the
well,
ones who
that's
keep
yeah, that's good.
replying to them. Yeah, yeah, that's the best part. I love that when I go through the comments. I'm like, we don't even need to comment because there's so many others who are there to, you know,
Yeah.
help you
Yeah.
out. Whatever. I mean, you don't even need to entertain them.
Yeah, no, it is good. I mean, sometimes I do wade in just because, sometimes people saying things, it's just like that's a flat out lie. You
Yeah,
damn well know that. And so I
absolutely.
call them out on it. But it's, but, for the most part, the people that are following these channels, that they're interested in carnivore and they're doing carnivore and they're getting
Yeah,
benefited by it. So, we have people that have very large channels, numbered in the millions, multiple millions, and people, and you look at the comments on these videos, and it's just person after person after person after person who has had significant benefit, reversed significant disease burdens by doing this. And so it's not something that, like, you can just keep to yourself in all good conscience, right? You see someone suffering from something, and it's
yeah,
just like, how can you not say that? I had a lady today who had just point after point after point. And it was just like all of this stuff. She had like rheumatoid arthritis, she had fibromyalgia, she had residual pain from sciatica surgery and radiculopathy. She had suffered from migraine. She had diabetes. It was just like one after that. I'm like, look, everything here is going to be improved just by changing your diet. And I sort of went through that with her, but I was just like, this is just like, I mean, this is just 3 points right here. I mean, this is just like,
absolutely.
you can't mess this up. Like, this could completely revolutionize your life.
Yeah,
And how do you not say that? So I understand the
exactly.
urge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do that with all my patients now. When I meet them, and they have these issues, and I just speak with them like, what do you eat, and they're like this, and I mean, I just have to tell them, what you've been doing is actually obviously not working out for you. Why
Mm,
don't you try something else? This is what I do. Look at me. I show them my photos. My team shows them my photos. Like, it's all over. Our photographs are all over the department, right? So, this is what he looked like. Look at him right now. There's so much of change. Listen to him. Try it once. I mean, see how you feel. So
yeah.
yeah, we do that. So, and but the links to the podcast and everything is sent to the patients, so the attendants, the families, and all.
Mm,
And I mean, somewhere somebody might be getting inspired to follow us and just or follow the right path to
yeah.
carnivore. Yeah,
Well, that's sort of the idea, and hopefully, well, it sounds like you're already making a lot of changes, and very positive changes in people's lives, and even though it's limited in how much time you get to spend with them to talk about this, clearly you've made an impact. You've already found that you've followed up with some of these people, and they're already improving. I love that idea of saying, look, I can send you to an endocrinologist, and you can take medications for the rest of your life, or you can change your diet. What do you want to
yeah,
do? That's a great
yeah.
approach. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always going to be a work in progress.
Mhm. Yeah. Dr. Unwin, David Unwin over in the UK, he's a GP there. And that's what he tells him. He said, listen, whatever you want to do, I can put you on these medications. You're going to be on them for the rest of your life. And this is going to continue to get worse. Or you can change your diet and just eat less carbs. He doesn't necessarily go full carnivore, just eat less carbs, just go low carb or no carb. And you'll reverse that. What do you want to do? It's one or the other, you know? And
Yeah,
he said every single one has chosen the diet instead of and the medication. So you just give people a chance, they get to choose. I mean, that's the whole point of informed consent, right? It's just like, hey, what do you want to do? Here are the options, here are the risks, here are the benefits. What do you
yeah.
want to do? I mean, that's what we should be doing as doctors, really.
He's lucky, because they chose the diet. Because as you know, people are actually addicted to carbs. Carb addiction
Mm.
is an actual thing. I mean, I've had actually people tell me that I'd rather have my sweets and take my insulin shot.
Yeah, yeah,
We've
yeah,
lived
yeah,
enough. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, they do that. Yeah, they do that.
God.
All right. I mean, I tried.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing that people don't realize, there's all this, trying to minimize the effect and the role that insulin has in our body. It's a very active hormone, as you know, and people try to say like, well, carbohydrates, you just eat sugar and your blood sugar goes up, and then insulin goes up correspondingly, and it drives energy into cells. It's a normal process. What's supposed to happen? Not at those levels. It's not supposed to be massively elevated blood sugar and massively elevated insulin. These are out of balance. When your blood sugar goes up, it causes damage to your body. It's called glycation. This is what kills diabetics. We know this. When blood sugar just goes up just a little bit above that crest, it becomes very toxic to the body. And that's why the insulin's going up. So there actually is damage happening to the body the whole time. But then if it was just insulin, just put energy, carbohydrates, and protein into cells, that would be just okay. Well, got a little bit of damage, but all right, not that big of a deal. Problem is, of course, that insulin does so many more things than just drive you know energy into cells. It's responsible for at least effects over 100 different processes in the body, and that's what I try to tell people. Is that it's not just about controlling the blood sugar; you got to control the insulin as well. The insulin being too high is going to affect everything at that heightened level, and that's completely out of balance, and your body gets out of balance, your metabolism gets out of balance, and that causes harm long before you get the damage from the sugar.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, uh, people need to, and even a lot of endocrinologists actually don't know that they should test the insulin
Mm,
levels fasting. And I would suggest PP also postprandial after foods, because you also want to see how much insulin is
mm,
secreted once you've taken in, some food. Uh, but yeah, I mean, just HbA1c and your fasting sugars is not going to help you diagnose. Forget diagnosing, rule out diabetes. That's not going to happen. You need to know if the patient is walking towards insulin resistance.
mm.
That's really important. It's also a driver for inflammation. So yeah,
Yeah,
really, really important.
yeah. I actually just saw a patient today, and his blood sugar was you know zero point 0.1 above what the reference ranges here would say that that's okay.
Yeah,
It's higher than I want it. But for that reference range, it's just a little blip above. And he said that he went to his GP, and GP said, yeah, 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 your levels are fine. There's no diabetes or anything like that. Um, but then, I checked his fasting insulin, and here with the numbers, really the range you should never be above 9. Really, I like to see it more around, 2 to 7.
yeah.
But really don't want that above 9. And his was 44, you know? So it was like, he's like, well, my doctor said I was fine. I was like, no. So this is so your body's compensating but it's getting very overwhelmed, and it's having to really, really, really work very hard to keep your blood sugars just struggling where they are, and it's just tipping above the horizon now. So that's you were compensating for it. Now it's decompensated, and so now that's starting to go up, and this is only going to go in one direction unless you completely change everything. And yeah, and I see it again and again. I mean, I had a guy, largest I've ever seen in my life. His fasting insulin was 72,
Wow,
and that
that's
was pretty
fasting.
impressive. Fasting, yeah. I mean, he had fasted for 24 hours. He's like, yeah, I didn't eat for 24 hours, and so he and so imagine what that was postprandial.
Yeah,
But and knew a lot of other sorts of things wrong, obviously. And I think 6 weeks we checked his bloods again, and it was already down to 35 on 6 weeks on a carnivore diet. and he was losing, plenty of weight and getting better in a lot of ways too. It's absolutely remarkable what this
Mhm.
does for people.
Yeah, absolutely. You must be feeling fantastic about that.
Mm, yeah, that's good. Well, that's what they're saying. I was like, when is a diet not a diet? This is a medical intervention, and we need to start thinking about that as doctors and patients. This is the medical intervention. It's not just you need to go on a diet and lose some weight. No, it's a medical intervention. You need to eat in a very different way to bring about a different medical outcome. And I think that's a very important way of phrasing this and getting, and relaying that and teaching that to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a lifestyle. Once
Yeah.
once you get into this, it totally becomes a lifestyle, a carnivore lifestyle. And I have a few friends who I've put on carnivore, and we went for a friend's wedding, and it was a vegetarian wedding. We none of us ate. You know,
Yeah.
I was so happy. I was so proud of them because I knew I was not going to eat. I actually pre-gamed with a lot of fats and eggs and all that before
Mhm.
we went. And yeah, I mean, I was really taken aback that, all right, these guys are actually following it. They went home and they ate after that.
Mhm.
So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, so you got the study coming up. What does the future hold for Dr. Verma?
Yeah. So yeah, I've been joking around with my team that if this actually works out, and we get a lot more people who are actually working on carnivore who want to go into the diet, I might just leave emergency medicine. Like, no ways, you can't quit emergency medicine. I'm like, if that was, yeah, but uh, but I'm gonna advocate as much as possible regarding the carnivore diet. But try to help as many people as I can. I mean, that's what we became doctors for.
Mm,
And I totally understand how many patients or people we've actually harmed, at least I have, by giving them the wrong diet advice. Uh, a lot of them, I've told them so many times, have moderation, have your proteins and carbs in moderation. I've actually told people to avoid red meats
mhm,
when their lipid profiles were deranged. And now I know, I mean, your lipid profiles don't matter too much. Your triglycerides and HDL is what's important. Uh, but yeah, I'm just gonna keep advocating. I can't push anybody. I can't shove meat down their throats. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep talking about it and probably try and support them as much as possible, even if they can't go full carnivore, at least cut off the junk foods. And I've been trying to tell my friends who have kids that it's not okay to normalize junk foods for your kids. Just because we've had them as kids doesn't mean we're going to feed that to our kids. I've done that to my son, but now he doesn't even remember the junk foods he's eaten.
mm,
So that's a good thing. He doesn't even ask for it. It's just erased from his memory. It might be in his subconscious mind somewhere and come out in the
mhm.
next 40, 50 years, probably in a dream or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I keep harping to my friends that it's not okay to normalize junk food, not just for adults, but majorly for the kids.
Mm,
Uh, and yeah, so podcast, my Instagram. I mean, I use my Instagram a lot. N- I am on X, but don't use that too much, especially not for this. I use that more for emergency medicine,
mm,
but not for carnivore right now.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, let's see. Let's see how many patients I get, how many lives I can turn around. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the
I'm sure it'll
plan.
be a lot. Yeah. Well, I think it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger, especially with, people on the ground there. But I noticed I have 11% of my followers on YouTube and Instagram are from India. And so, that's a significant
Fantastic.
amount. And I've noticed that there's more and more interest over there, and
It
and,
is.
and
It is.
certainly there's a lot of people that could use it. I mean, it's 30% diabetes rate that just goes away.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I'm always going to put out that, I can save their lives without them coming to the ED. It's not required. We don't require to save your lives. You can
Mhm,
actually do it yourselves
mhm.
by eating right and following the correct lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have you over there advocating for this and getting more people that don't have access to my podcast. I mean, there's a lot of people in this world that don't speak English, and I don't speak anything but English. So
Yeah.
it's great to have more people like yourself in India and elsewhere. Just fighting the good fight and just putting this out there to people because we need it. We're the fattest and sickest we've ever been in human history,
Yeah.
And we are, and the powers that be are spending billions of dollars pushing us hard in that direction of illness as opposed to in the direction of health. But saying that, I mean, they're just gaslighting the hell out of us, saying that
Yeah.
the thing that's causing us to get sick is, oh, that's actually the thing that's going to save you. Oh, that thing that you've been avoiding and getting more sick as a result of it. No, that's what was doing it. No. It's like homeopathy. Like less is more. Like the less meat you eat, it gets more potent. So you just have to get rid of all of it. And it's really important to keep fighting that. So I appreciate you doing that work, buddy.
You. Thanks, Anthony. And you've been doing some amazing work also, being a neurosurgeon. And I mean, you've got so many millions of people who are following you. I listen to your podcast, your YouTube, and just amazing work. You've been, I think, 6, 7 years carnivore now, maybe more. And you've touched so many lives, and like the other doctors who are there, and the other coaches who've gone carnivore, and they're advocating the same thing. So yeah, I think as a community, we're all doing a good job. We just need to continue doing that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's great, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on, man. That was a great conversation, and I'm sure everyone got a lot out of that and sort of debunked the myth of the healthy um, subcontinent of vegan India. So thank you very much for that. Please do tell everybody where they can find you and about your podcast and Instagram and social media.
It's been a pleasure, Anthony. Thank you so much for having me here. They can follow me on my Instagram, which is ANKSV. That's my Instagram handle. And my podcast is the DESIEM project. That's on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. So yeah, people can listen in over there and follow what we do on Instagram. Thank
Awesome.
you so much.
Not a problem, man. I'll put all those links in the description. So if people would like to see more, head down and you guys can check out our interview on Dr. Verma's podcast as well, which was great too. So thank you
Yeah.
very much. It was great to see you. And thank you all for joining and listening. I hope you found that useful. And if you liked it, please do leave a comment letting us know what you thought. And if you had any sort of issue with your health that you've been able to reverse with a carnivore diet, please do leave a comment and let people know about that, because that really helps people understand that this is real people doing this and finding this. And if you see that and you say like, oh, actually that's something I have, people are much more likely to be inspired to try it. So do know that your sphere of influence in your own personal life and the comments you leave and the interactions you make online and in real life make a huge difference in other people's lives. So thank you all for the work that you're doing too. We'll see you next time. Hey guys, thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to what I had to say. If you like it, then please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. And if you're on YouTube, then please hit that little bell and subscribe, and that'll let you know anytime I have a new video out, which should be every week, if not more. And if you could share this with your friends, that would help me get the word out and let me know that you like what I'm doing. Thanks again, guys.